I'm in Swanwick today for Motorboat and Yachting, looking at this rather beautiful Princess 68 that Princess Motor Yacht Sales have got up for sale. And I'm going to give you a tour of this one and tell you a little bit about them and what they're all about. Now, this is a boat that launched in 2014 at the Southampton Boat Show. And when it was new, it came as standard with this white hull. In fact, you could have a very dark blue hull as an option, so from here down in dark blue, or you could also have a steel grey option, which a lot of people did, but the white actually does look very crisp. I think it suits the style of boat very well. Now we're going to step on at the back. There's a couple of things to mention. Now this boat has the high-low bathing platform. In fact, that'll take a Williams 385 rib, so a really big tender. This is a Williams 325 on here, which is what most people went for because it just leaves a decent amount of space around it. So that's the tender you'll most likely find on one of these. Another option on these when they were new is the crew cabin. Now this was a £16,000 option when the boat was new, but it's actually extremely rare. In fact, I would be surprised if there are any that don't have this because it's such a useful space. It's a bit full of gear on this one, as you can see, but there are two berths in there, and then there's also a separate toilet compartment. In fact, I'll nip in and show you. And that is just there. So that's actually a pretty decent room. And it's nicely appointed. You could in fact use this as a fifth cabin if you wanted to, no problem at all. So if you want a bit of overflow, you've got it. Now let's head on in and I'll show you the rest of the boat. So this is the cockpit. Again, tons of room on here. It's actually a really well proportioned boat. This table is opened right out at the minute for dining, but of course that will fold. You can see the hinges there. So you can make that half its size, and then that exposes these grab rails. And she's a galley aft layout, so the galley is back here. The earlier boats got a push button raise and lower of this window, and in fact on later boats, well, that is rather slick, they changed that for a mechanical one, so you just unclipped it and opened it by hand just to simplify things a little. But this is very nice. It really connects these areas very well, so you can cater for the cockpit or the flybridge just as well as the inside of the boat. And then here, it's nicely appointed. You've got things like your crockery drawers and your cutlery all nicely done. And then there's a big fridge freezer in here as well, and even a dishwasher. And this has the 4-burner hob and the oven underneath it. So decent size, and you've also got the dinette area. So that's a nice area just inside the boat, and in fact you can open this up. So if you're dining here, you can make that a lot larger. Obviously you can put director's chairs on this side as well. And what that does is it keeps the saloon area completely separate. So that's up here. Lovely, big, deep, comfortable seats in there, and you've got the really deep windows as well that actually drop below the level of the settee. So very light and airy, and very sociable because obviously people can sit right around and chat and so on. And there's a television that rises up from that panel just there. And up ahead of this is the bar area, so you have things like fridge, the ice maker, and the bar. And another nice touch on these then is this raised area next to the helm, so people can sit here when the boat's underway, chat to the people at the helm and get a great view out. That's another really lovely area on this boat. And the helm itself, well, that's on this side, and you can see it's got a side door on this one as well, which is a great feature. And then this one's got the Raymarine hybrid touch screens. And this is all the engine instrumentation along here, so when your engines are running, this all lights up with your revs and fuel and that kind of thing. And down here, this one's got the option of the fin stabilizer, so that's the controls for those. Just there. And this is always a nice touch. You see the Princess crown here, wherever you turn the steering wheel, that always stays correctly orientated. Orientated? Orientated. And the other thing you have on here is the bow and the stern thruster. So nice helm position, but we'll head down to the lower deck. And there are in fact two ways down to this. This is down to the owner's suite, and this is down to the guest area. So we'll go down here first of all. This is the switch panel. So all your 24 volt systems and your 230 volt systems are controlled from here. Generator start and stop is here, and the distribution for whether you're on shore power or generator is also there. And then items like your windlass and your passerelle are switched from here. So that's where you operate pretty much all the electrics of the boat from. And if we head down to the front, we'll find the VIP cabin, really nice size and really well lit, as Princesses tend to be. So you've got this lighting down under the bed, you've got it down the sides, in the ceiling of course. I don't know whether you can make it out, but there's a panel just there which you can pull down, and that takes you to a hatch which gives you another way out of this deck if it was ever needed. And then storage in places like this, and tucked in places like this. There are drawers underneath the bed and a big wardrobe over on this side, like so. In fact, this is all storage up around here as well on this side and up here. So that's your VIP cabin, very nice it is too. It has an ensuite, that's in here, separate shower stall, and typical Princess, really nicely appointed. And back from here then, there are two more guest cabins. Both very similar. So twin beds in here, and in fact there's an option which this boat has where you can push a button and you can see how that moves across, so that you can convert this into a double if you want to. Let's move that back again. Try and leave it as we found it. So that's a very useful feature. Again, things like wardrobe just here. And if you look under the bed, you can see there's storage areas underneath there as well. That is mirrored on the other side. That is pretty much the same. There's one big difference with this cabin, and that is that there's a day heads directly ahead of it. So this is shared between cabins 3 and 4, but this cabin actually has a doorway from here. So this can be a direct ensuite straight through. Again, very nicely appointed, and you have the separate shower area here. So that's for your guests. What about for the owner? Well, if we head back here, as I mentioned before we came down, there is a separate entrance, that's over here. And if we step on down, again, that beautiful lighting that Princess is so good at. And there's a nice window here with a view out. See the water there. And if we carry on round, I'll stop just for a moment to show you this, because there's a big cupboard in here, but also the washing machine lives in there as well. And that's the master cabin. Very nicely appointed, very subtle. This has got the walnut wood, and it's in a satin finish. You can see it here. Now they did different options on this. You could have this walnut, but in a high gloss. You could also have oak, which is a lighter finish. And that again you could have in high gloss or the satin finish we've got here. This satin finish walnut does look particularly nice and was particularly popular, so I suspect you'll find a lot of boats like this with this interior. This is all storage across here. There's a very nice little dressing area underneath, and like little touches like this little gas strut on here so it doesn't slam down. And then storage along underneath. This one's actually got a safe in it as well, which is another option. And as you'd expect, its own ensuite. So big shower area there, and the sink, and the loo, and a towel rail. Very nicely done. Now the interesting thing about this is you can see obviously the doorway is right here, and that this is directly ahead of this area. Now we tested the very first, and I couldn't help noticing when I read the review of it before I came and looked at this boat, that the doorway for that was here. So the first one had the door into the heads out of this cabin and through there, which is a rather odd arrangement, and clearly they very quickly swapped that around and put the door over there, which makes a lot more sense, of course. Big TV in here, as you can see, and all of these cabins are air conditioned. Again, it's an option depending on how the original owner specified the boat, but most of them will have that because it's reverse cycle, so it does heating and air conditioning. So let's head on around here. We'll go and take a look at the flybridge, and then we'll talk about engines and performance. So we're back out through here. I do like this flooring they put in here. I think that's great because it makes this whole area so practical. If people are swimming and somebody wanders in to get a drink, they're not walking on the carpet. I think that's excellent. And this opens so wide here. Very nice indeed. Let's put my shoes back on. Another popular option on this boat was the power stern winches. So you can see them here. There's a button, foot operated down there, and that's so if your stern too berthed, you can bring the lines from the quay, put them around there, and then power the boat back into the quay. This is the steps up to the flybridge. These little silver discs are lighting, so this is all illuminated down here at night. And an option that you will find on almost all of these is the hardtop. It was quite an expensive option. I think it was a £55,000 option, but it works very well. And a further option was this sliding roof section here. So you can then open that, so you've got the best of both worlds. You can have it open when the weather's warm and sunny, but if it gets too hot, you can power that across, and then you've got complete shade. But an interesting thing I haven't seen quite so often is that this owner has then added these side screens all the way around. That means on a day like today, it's like a little greenhouse up here. It's warm and it's dry and it's cosy, and it makes this very usable. It's a great idea in the UK. Sunbathing cushions would go on the back, and this of course is a big dining area around this table, or relaxing area, and you've got a wet bar on this side. So this is things like the grill. There's a sink there, and that's a big top loading fridge. Bin underneath that one, and that's just a bit of storage. And then of course up here you've got another helm position, so you can drive the boat from here on a nice day. You've got seats for 2 people, but also this is a great area next to the helm, so more people can join and enjoy the ride. And the other thing we can see from here, it's covered up at the moment, but there is a bow seating area, so you can see that little cutout around there, some big cushions on the front, and then a forward facing seat that goes around. That's another very nice area on the boat. Lovely. Let's go have a look at the engines. So we're back down these steps, and then the engine access is under the floor. The actual engines are under this area just ahead of us. So we'll just move that one out of the way, and then we can just lift that like so. So this takes us down into a storage and engineering area. So down here are things like the generator lives here. We've got the hydraulics for the stabilizers, battery management systems are in here, and the batteries themselves in fact are down underneath here as well in these boxes. And as you can see, there are seacocks and that kind of thing. These are drains over here, some manifolds, so that you can see how everything's labelled: roof drain, cockpit drain, airbox drain. They all come down into that manifold and out of the boat, so it saves having loads of skin fittings on the side of the boat. And then ahead of us, through this door, engines. Now on this boat you could have Caterpillar or MAN engines, 1150 or 1200, and the top engine then was an MAN V12 1400 horsepower engine. That's what this boat has got, and actually this is what most of these got. People tended to opt for the big engine with this boat, and that's given the boat a quite incredible top speed of 35 knots, which for a big, almost 70-foot flybridge boat is really tramping on. And at that sort of speed, it's burning 500 litres of diesel an hour. But what's nice is not necessarily the top speed, but the fact you can then drop the speed right back, and at 1800 RPM, which is probably just about double tick over, you're still getting 23 knots, and your fuel consumption then is almost half at 300 litres an hour. And that's giving you then a range then of about 260 miles with a decent reserve. It's a very nice engine space, loads of headroom. This is all the air conditioning units along here. You can see, in fact, it says starboard, port condenser, stateroom and forward, and what that means is that each one can control their own temperatures independently of each other, which is a nice feature. But it's typical Princess really, beautifully laid out, beautifully lit, and very nicely done. It's a shaft drive boat, so you can see the shafts here, the gearboxes are on the back of the engines, and the shafts run out down here and out through the boat. Propellers on the end and then rudders behind those, so a nice straightforward, well-proven system. Excellent. Let's head back out of here. Close that door again before I forget. There we go. And we'll drop that fella back down. And I think, I'll slip my shoes back off, so I'll finish up by the helm. I think it's a lovely area. Nice place to tuck yourself away with a good book. Pity I didn't bring one. So that's it. That is the Princess 68. Now it ran until 2018 and the Princess F70 replaced it. Very similar concept, but just an updated version really of this. But that, I think, is a boat with a lot to offer. You're looking for a boat of around 70 foot flybridge, certainly worth checking out.